Are we on? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Microphone check. Lights. Cameras.
This is swanky. This is lifestyle. This is culture. Welcome to the social center of everything culture. Culture Daily.
Here on the show, and we're going till 10 a.m. or possibly plus if possible. Well, and I know you'll also listen to us on Plus 89.9 FM. But let me just throw this in that if you pass 10 a.m., you can catch this show back at 10 p.m. tonight with a repeat telecast, and also on our socials here on 3 Music TV. It's Jay, is the whole squad. AC, Serial, and Lenny here in the studio. Now, yesterday we did celebrate Independence Day, and there's a lot of conversations around the road to independence. Well, we're going to be picking some history and some facts and things that happened for us to enjoy the freedom which we enjoy today in Ghana. Where did we start from the Gold Coast all the way till we are here? And I have a special guest in the studio to help us do that. But before I introduce him, quick reminder again that, listen, we want to throw a party for you this end of March. Yes, this end of March at location. You did same for Celestina. It was awesome. It was amazing. Now, if you're March born and your birthday falls in the month of March, well, again, yeah, anyway, that's tautology, right? If you're March born, yes, listen, it's very easy. Just send us your name, a picture, your telephone number, and a picture of your Ghana card for verification purposes to WhatsApp number 020-40,080. 020-40,080. And we are going to jam live with you. So, hurry. Don't be last. Don't slack. I was trying to rhyme. Don't slack. Don't be last. All right. So hurry up. Send us your name, your picture, your telephone number to WhatsApp number, and your picture of your Ghana card to WhatsApp number 020-40,080. And you just might be the lucky one, like Celestine. Later on, I'll bring you highlights of Celestine's birthday party. It was massive. Featured Lali and Lola and Kojo Black. They were all there as special guests. Also experience sound. No, I should be doing that. Lenny will handle that for you. Lenny will handle that for you. But listen, Ed, would I nearly say it? I apologize, please.
Apology
Loads
accepted.
of things running through my mind at the same time. Now, if you're looking for the best value data and voice offers that are tailored to your unique needs, well, at Telecel, we understand everyone has their own preference, and that's why we have unbeatable made-for-me offers made for you. So the made-for-me bundles are affordable, customized data and voice packages personalized for you. Just dial *530# or download the Telecel Play app to subscribe to your Telecel special made for me bundle. Is just made for you. Telecel, connecting energies. And Betway also has great news for you this morning. Listen, now we've all been there before. You've placed that perfect multi-bet. It's going your way until one or more pick lets you down. Now, with Betway's Bet Saver feature, you can win even if your bet misses. Now, even on multiple losses, you can get your bet back and more. Bet Saver is exclusive to Betway. Get way more. Terms and conditions apply. Regulated by the Gaming Commission of Ghana. Bet the responsible way. Betway, get way more. Lenny, do you want to do 9:45 where the dangerous things happen?
Yes,
or?
we can do 9:45.
I agree. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome our historian into the house, Mr. Kweku Darko Ankrah.
Yeah.
I had it right. Wow. Story once said that, they say as people age, they become wiser. And also, as the country grows old, we hope to become wiser. We are only 68 years, so we pardon ourselves some of the things that we have faulted and we made mistakes in. But these are lessons that we learn from. Also, equally, people toiled and people slaved and people shed blood for us to enjoy what we are enjoying today here as Ghanaians, as young as we are, regardless. But it's only right that we also go back to understand our history very, very well. But before we do that, let's profile you personally a little bit. What got you into getting so much interest in history?
Okay, I think I grew up with it. Okay, so my grandfather was first United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, Robert Gardner. So I do had a lot of books. So on my matrimonial, I'm a gardener, not Ankrah. So I had the opportunity of books that you have used in Oxford, all those history books. Then I became a science student at Addis Ababa College. And I was not feeling any science in me. but you are forced to, study and pass. So I did what I could anyway. So I passed. Then I'm supposed to go to university doing medicine or something. I don't see myself as any medical person. My friends come. I feel so down. So the whole first year, I didn't go to school, and because I was thinking of my path. I became enthused with the way Kwesi Pratt and Kweku Darko in those days, they were the champions of the airwaves. So I decided to go to the GIJ. Then I look at the option. I said, okay, let me do political science first at Legon. So after then I went to GIJ. After GIJ, I was still not happy with what I have studied, but I practiced for just 2 years. Did some better stories with my best friend Anas for some times and so on. And then
Anas we know.
Yes, he was with Kweku Darko, and
so you can identify him if you see him anytime.
Oh, but he. So then later on, I just decided to go to do law, and I did the LLB. I was not feeling it. And I was told, so I was confused all my life. And then somebody advised me, my law lecturers advised me, including ACP Kofi Buachi, and so say, tell you the way you are now. Then I decided to go to African Studies and do history, because I was natural already. I needed not to study that much. So I went and then I did African Studies. I did African Studies and not history itself, because I am kind of person who like interdisciplinary studies, the culture, the development studies, the economics, all those things appealed to me. So I needed to have everything in addition to the history. But my thesis was hardcore history.
Hardcore history.
Yes.
And we want to get into that hardcore history this morning.
And I'm currently also writing my thesis, PhD thesis in also hardcore history.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
You sure have written a lot of exams.
Yeah, so within this year, I will be done and then got my PhD. So
wow. Congratulations. Congratulations.
So that's what I'm hoping for.
Wow. Now, we are in an era where a bigger chunk of the youth have taken over the influence of a culture in the country. So we reference them as Gen Zs. Yeah. So in this digital day and age, a lot of us Gen Zs, if I say us, I don't fall in there, but a lot of us Gen Zs have been disconnected with some of the very important historical facts of this country. Hence, the importance of us having a conversation like this to understand the road to Ghana's independence. We may have learned in social studies, but that's a long time ago. Curriculums change. I don't know what is happening now in schools. I'm not there myself, or neither are my mates in here. But there may have been points in there that we have to go back to understand. Then we can properly appreciate ourselves as Ghanaians. So this morning's conversation is just documenting and us understanding what it took from the era of the Gold Coast and the people who fought at that time to where we are today as Ghana.
Okay, thank you very much. So if you look at Gold Coast, now Ghana, we first need to deal with the ethnic amalgamation, how ethnic groups came to settle in the country. So you go back, some ethnic groups, it really came to meet the whites, okay, on the coast. So for instance, the time the Portuguese came in 1471, Achems, for example, were then moving from the Praia confluence all the way to the Brim area where they settle now. So Achem as an ethnic group has then not been founded. Okay, the Fantis have also come and they were at Mankesim and they were now coming to the coast. So the Portuguese actually did not see them. So there's a contested history as whether the Fantis were there at the right at that time. But we knew there were Aboriginal people that Fantis really kind of swallowed, and they are called the Eti people. So they were on the coast at Anomabu, Eja, Cape Coast was also there, which was then called Fetu, or Ogwa, then Edna, or Elmina was also there. Then you have the Shama. These were people who were on the coast when the Portuguese came. And so if you look at the Gan people too have come, but they also were at Ayawaso, which is between Legon and Brekuso, where they were settled on the hill before they will also later come to the coast. The others were also moving from Nuche gradually to where they are now. So the Portuguese actually met very few ethnic groups. If you take the Dutch map of 1625, you realize that many ethnic groups are then not been around. So the European emergence on the coast itself met with the period of state formation. I say state formation because the states themselves were now being founded. And the formation went on. For instance, the Ashantis became a state after the Battle of Fayas in 1699 by 1700, before Asante as a nation was founded. So you see Asante as one of the youngest ethnic groups. Then 1733, you have another ethnic group like Ekwapiam also being born. So all these things shows you that the state formation take a long trajectory between 1471, the Europeans came, all the way to by 1730s, before the final formation of the ethnic groups will end. So if you look at that, then it means we are from certain geographical areas before we came to where we are. But upon coming, because of the Portuguese came in 1471, according to them, the first people were Santarém and Escobar. They were the people heading the ship. So when they landed in a place called Yabio, which is close to Shama, when they landed, they saw particles of gold on the beach. And so they shouted in their Portuguese language, Amina. So Amina is like a mine and gold. Oh. And so they say this is Cabo Coso. Amina Koso, which becomes English when you translate, become the Gold Coast, because in their language. Oh. So because of the gold particles, they founded on the beach. So Elmina, when they went to what is present day Elmina, which original name was called Kwamankwa, okay, because the founder of the town was called Kwamankwa. When they reached there, then they saw it as a small village, so they call it Odie. In their language, Odie means village. And then the Fantis couldn't also pronounce the Odie word, so they say Edna. That is how the Odie became Edna. And they see the place as a mine, so they called Elmina, the mine. So that's why they got the name like that. So those towns have been there. Cape Coast, because of this, a cape that pushes into the sea, so they call it Cabo Coso. That is Cape Coast, and that's the name they also give to Fetu or Ogba, which used to be a market. So you see, Accra has it. Eves also have it on the coast. The Enzimas have it on the coast, and then these people started coming to the beach side, and then the Europeans also started coming. So apart from the Portuguese that came from 1471, by 1555. The Spanish have come, they couldn't overthrow the Portuguese. 1555, the Dutch fought with the Portuguese and then defeated them and took over. Over the years, Sweden came in, Germans came in, the Danes, people from Denmark also came in, and then finally France also came in, Germans came in, and then in fact, the whole Europe.
You see why we don't have problems.
So everything, and this could be seen in the forts and castles that they built, which was about 50, and the sea actually have eaten a lot of them. Okay, so very few of them. So if you start from the western region, you have the Fort Fredericksburg, which was for the Germans. When the Germans came, that's where they built their own. You have the Dutch. Some at Dieskov, some at Comante, some at Accra, the Usher Force and what have you. So they built their own. And then you have the Danes also building the Christiansborg Castle at Osu, and then the Fort Presenstein at Qatar. Okay, so those are there. Then you also have the Sweden. Sweden built the Cape Coast Castle, as well as the Anomabo one, the first one, before the British will rebuild it. And interestingly, in Cape Coast, when they were building it, the people on the coast, particularly the Fantis, they've never participated in the building of any of the castles before them. In Elmina, when they were building, they say they are not slaves to be used for such a donkey work. So the Portuguese have to go to Nigeria and bring in a lot of people to come and build. In Cape Coast, when they were building, the Fanti women who were pregnant says that when they are pregnant, you have to pay them double, themselves and the baby in the womb, because they are matrilineal. The Swedish say, no, this is absolute nonsense, so they will not pay. And they stopped their job. So the Swedes went back and paid the women double. And for me, when I'm discussing issues of feminism consciousness, that is where I start. The right of women knowing their right in terms of labor, that a person who is pregnant needs to be treated differently from a person who is whole in that form. So that is how the Fanti women dealt with the Swedes and then received double salary for their effort. So all across, you see the Europeans having a lot of interactions with the African. Then they move on to do slave trade. It first started with the gold, diamond, and other agricultural exports. Then it moved to illegitimate trade, which was slave trade. And it traded until 1800s. Then it was abolished. And then legitimate trade returned again with palm kernel production, palm oil, rubber. Then cocoa came before later gold also re-emerged to take over again. So that was in the order. Now, while all this trade was going on, one nation decided that they want to sit and rule the country, the new territory, and that was Britain. So when Britain came in, they made several moves to consolidate their gains. By 1870, they have made the final plan that they want to do something, because in 1865, they decided that they want to weigh the profitability of the colonial estate, and they realized that they were losing because the gold production had gone down very low and they were not getting any income. So as a result, they realized that they would rather use their money to support the colonial estates in the West Africa. Then suddenly, wham, Ashanti gold, Obuasi gold emerged. Gold production in Awin and other places. So no, we can't go like that. There is still more. So colonialism is all about profit for the colonialists, because that is what they thrive on. And the intention is not to build any nation. Unless that is why they didn't do any infrastructural development in area of railway, in the area of ship and shipping industry and so on. So when they realized that the gold have come, despite agreeing in 1865 that they want to move out of West Africa, all their properties, the Cape Coast King Nana Ejil sent 2 people to go and observe the proceedings. And when the people returned, they told the chief that the people want to do what? Move away from the Gold Coast. So the Fantis immediately realized that the British will leave, so they need to form a government. So they formed the Fanti Confederation as a move, so that as soon as the British leave, they will use it to rule the coast. Unfortunately, the gold production emerged. So while the Fanti Confederation were building their political structures and what have you, having a consultant, a doctor who is from Sierra Leone and Nigeria, Africanus Houghton, consulting for them about how to write constitutions, sending people to Britain to learn about parliamentary practices and constitutional crafting. They drafted their constitution and everything. As soon as the British authorities saw it, they arrested them for working against the interests of the British authority. And then the Fanti Confederation came to an end. Quickly, the British moved forward to pass the Order in Council in 1874. After banning the Fanti Confederation in 1873, then in the following year, they came with Order in Council that they intend to colonize the whole coast. And then in 1876, they proceeded further by signing several treaties with people on the coast and some few in the hinterland. So then 1876, we became a Gold Coast colony. And the Gold Coast colony was included southern Nigeria, the Calabar area, all were part of the Gold Coast.
Wow.
They only left in 1888. And it was in 1888 before they moved out of the Gold Coast colony, and then the Gold Coast colony became what we know today. So that Gold Coast colony was there up till 1894. The Fantis made a move immediately after the, the incorporation of the Gold Coast colony, which they were signing further agreements. So they signed some with the Aunos. By 1888, they have signed all the agreement with the coastal chiefs of Auno from the Some area through Aflao all the way to Tong areas. They've signed agreement with them, excluding the Vedome areas. Then all the way through Accra, Adan, all the way through Nzema areas. And they started moving hinterland through Dentra, as well as the Achim areas. And then they incorporated it into the Gold Coast. So by 1888, they have finished these incorporations and they have become what is called the Gold Coast then. Then the Fantis realized that these British do not intend to go. So they formed something called Fantia Membufeku to away what I call the cultural nationalism. So they told their leaders to write about the Fanti language, the orthography, how to speak their own language, the history of the Gold Coast. So Saba was tasked with collecting all the customary laws of the Fanti people and the Akans, which he wrote in 1890 and called it Fanti Customary Law, which is a source book in the Ghana Law School when you want to learn about customary law.
Still exists.
They still exist. And then Kesley Hayford also wrote about Gold Coast Native Institutions by 1900, which was a book that also talked about chieftaincy as the best form of governance system and that it was democratic. Then he went on to plead with the British that in spite of the chiefs being the leaders, the educated elite should be seen as people who will rule the nation when the British leave. Then Anaman also went about writing the Fanti dictionary, writing in Zema grammar and other people's grammar so that people will understand their language and use it effectively. So all these periods are what I called cultural nationalism. People trying to make sense of their identity, their background, who they are, and the understanding that they are also better people and that Europeans cannot push them down.
That's like what we're discussing on languages.
You get that point. So that was what they did around that time. These actions also affected the Ghana people to also develop. So you see Randolph also writing the history of the Gold Coast, including the Ghana history embedded within it. In the Ewe communities, we see what we call pan-Ewe nationalism, where the ideas of using Auno as a language was also inculcated and was the Basel missionaries also use it. So all over the Ewe communities, Auno language was used as educational tool. And it is at the forefront of the Ewe unity, okay? It is at the forefront of the Ewe unity. That is why when you speak the Be language, the persons say Nyabro immediately. They can link. So Ewes are more united with the language. So the language became that sort of thing. And that is the cultural nationalism, how you unite your people against external forces. So these things went on culturally. Then in 1894, the governor came out with a law that every land on the Gold Coast, which is unoccupied, belongs to the Queen of England because it's a wasteland. As far as the Europeans are in their thought, there's something called terra nullius, a thing without owner. And that is one form of possession of land in the past. If you move to a place and it is not occupied, when you move there and no one comes to claim ownership, you occupy that land as yours. So they thought that the Africans have no conception of ownership of land. So wherever land are not occupied, they brought that idea to possess the land. But the Fanti elders showed them difference. As soon as this was formed, they wrote letters to say that if you go to someone's land and you start cultivating, you will see the person coming to tell you that this is my land. So if you see an empty space, Do not just think that it is without owner. And they wrote their argument there, but the governor ignored them. So in 1897, the governor came out with the policy that now they are passing it, the land belongs to the Queen of England. So they formed Aborigines Right Protection Society. And when they founded it, headed by one of the richest persons on the Gold Coast called Jacob Wilson Say. Wilson Say bought a private ship and gathered this educated elite, and they went to England, to the House of Lords. And these fancy elites who were lawyers went to argue their case, as I've explained, and they were able to prove to the House of Lords, which is also their Supreme Court, and they won the case. And when they won the case, this helped all the West African territories from having their freedom. Elsewhere in East Africa and South Africa, they didn't have anybody to actually defend them when these same laws Ghana were passed there.
We do all.
Oh, yeah, because I'm
do all. Fanciful.
So they kind of did it in East Africa, as we all know, in Kenya, in Uganda, and in South Africa too. They did the same thing. As we speak, Zimbabwe, South Africa, they are still in the processes of reclaiming their lands. But in West Africa, we had that opportunity. Indeed, after the case in Nigeria, the Oba of Nigeria has sold, in fact, he gifted the land to the Queen of England that the entire Lagos is for her. And when his son, who was educated, called Amadou Tijani, became the Oba of Nigeria, the case is Oluwo case. When he became a chief, he came to the Gold Coast and met with Kesile Hayford and the fancy dudes that went to do the case that he wanted to retract his land. And so they took him and they went to argue for him. And in 1927, they were able to take all the Lagos land back to the 8 people from the England.
Ghana, Nigeria, no, we know.
So you see, that kind of alliance. Then in the fight against the colonialism, the Gold Coasters realized that they alone cannot make it. So they need West African approach. So Kesile Hayford, with his friend Dr. Richard Akiwande Savage of Nigeria, came together and they found the National Congress for British West Africa. And its membership were drawn from the Gambia, Nigeria, Ghana, the Gold Coast, and Sierra Leone, which are the 4 British West African territories. So they formed the NCBWA in Accra in August 1920. And they made the move that there is the need for new province to be created, and the educated elite must stand for elections and be voted for to represent the people. But this didn't go down well with the chiefs, led by Nanase Oforiatta, the paramount chief of Akim Ebuakwa. He argues that it is not the right of educated elite to lead the people, but it is the right of the natural rulers. Natural rulers here are the chiefs, because it is a long-standing fact that in every community they were led by the chiefs and not the educated elite. So he wrote, when the NCBWA wrote that the new rules must be applied, he wrote that it should be ignored because they don't represent the people. So the British ignored, and they never made mention of any move. They continued to fight until 1924 in Accra. A man called A.W. Kojo Thompson, Augustus William Kojo Thompson. He is named after in the graphic road, Kojo Thompson Road. Oh. He is named after that. He formed a party called Gamambi Party, okay, like Ghana National Party. And he started agitating for the right for the ordinary people that even when the elections come for the provincial elections, ordinary people must be allowed to vote. In Accra, another Dr. Frederick Nanka Bruce, also formed a party called Ratepayers Association. And he believed that not everybody should vote in an election unless you are a property owner. That's why he called his party Ratepayers, that ordinary people do not have the necessary understanding of governance to participate. So Goggisberg came with the Municipal Corporation Bill, and it was passed into an act, and then elections were to come. So they divided Gold Coast into 3 provinces. Greater Accra Province, which include Volta and then Eastern Region, all as part of the Greater Accra Province. And then the Cape Coast Province, we take care of the entire Central Region. And then the Western Province, which is Western Province. And then election was conducted. But in the election, you must have up to £50 before you can vote. So Kojo Thompson says, no, ordinary people cannot have that amount of money. So he argued and it's reduced to £5. So anybody who can show that he has a property that can range up to £5. And today we are talking about people who own a building, a shop or something before you could participate. And the election was run. And in Accra, Kojo Thompson himself lost the election to Glover Addo. So Glover Addo became the first in today's term member of parliament for Greater Accra. Then in Secondary Takrady, Kesile Hayford stood and he won in Secondary Takrady. In Cape Coast, a man called Kobnesechi said no. As for him, he doesn't need any British in the Gold Coast. They should go back. If they don't go, there will be no election in Cape Coast. So he stood up and the entire Cape Coast boycotted the 27th Legislative Council elections. In the following year, the British came to beg that they started the capital at Cape Coast. And that is where all the educational infrastructure and all the lawyers too are. Mm-hmm. And now you say you won't bring people. So how would the Legislative Council function? So they begged, and then one man decided to stand for the election. His name is Kobna Akukosa. He will later become our first Chief Justice. So Akukosa stood in 1928, and then he stood unopposed. Nobody could challenge him, and he won the seat from 1928 to 1943, and represented Cape Coast. So that is the kind of arrangement.
Since you mentioned that date, what about the Yasantua era? What was happening in the Ashanti area? Because I know Yasantua was, 1902 or 06? Or
I will be getting there for you. Okay. So you realize that all these narrations I've given so far, you've not heard of Ashanti, you've not heard of the Northern Territories. Mm-hmm. The reason being that Gold Coast was, the British used a system, okay? In English we call divide et imperata, divide and rule. So the Gold Coast proper, they call it their model territory. It is a territory after British own heart. It is their experimentation, which they think it is the best they would ever have. Ashanti, they went to war with Ashanti because they needed the agricultural production of Ashanti and the mineral resources. That is why they provoked Ashantis to war in 1893 when they went to the mine for the king's golden stool, which you know that is the soul of the Ashantis. And when you ask for that, it means you are asking for war. It was an act of provocation. So when Ashantis want to fight, then they defeat them, then they come under them. And surely the war came, and Ashantis were defeated. So in 1900, Ashanti became the British annexation, and then they rule it separately. According to them, the Fantis and other groups are already giving them troubles. If you bring the fighting Ashanti to join the Gold Coast, the Fantis will train them academically and other stuffs, and they will use the knowledge systems as well as their martial capabilities to fight for independence. So Ashanti was what?
Annexed.
Was annexed and then was ruled differently, separately as a separate territory. So they call it Ashanti hinterland. Northern Territories too was also annexed in 1900 through the agreements of George Akim Ferguson of Anomabu, who negotiated with the Northern chiefs and also brought them. So by 1900, Northern Territories have also become part of the Gold Coast, but also ruled separately. But the administrative head was in the Gold Coast with the capital at Accra. So that was the order. Within this period, it was only in 1946 before Ashantis could even send somebody to the Gold Coast Legislative Council as a result of Alan Byrne's Constitution of 1946, which says that the Ashanti territories and the North and the Gold Coast must come together. So Ashantis first time sent their members to the Gold Coast Legislative Council in 1946, when the coastal people were already going to the Legislative Council as far back as 1880s. Okay? And then the Northern Territories did not become part of the Legislative Assembly of the Gold Coast until 1951. Okay, before they also became part of the Gold Coast. That is why when
that's so recent.
That is why when we are narrating the Gold Coast people, the people who participated, we hardly hear the names of the Asantis and then the people of the North. Region, okay, but the Eves have always I'm talking about the Anlo Eves and the Town Eves have always been part of Gold Coast from the very beginning. So they were part of modern Ghana or Gold Coast long before Ashanti or Northern Territories became part of the Gold Coast. So sometimes I hear some people these are ignorance. Okay, the only people who were late admitters were the Vedome areas because they were part of Transvolta Togoland. You get the point? Yeah. And Transvolta Togoland is not only the people of from Ho all the way through, all the way up to even some part of Peki and other areas were already in the British domain. All the way up through Ketekrache, through some part of Buem, all the way to Gonjaland, some part of Dagomba land, some part of Mamprisi land, all the way to Boku, the Kusasis, and some Konkomba. They were all part of Transvolta Togoland. So people make it look like it is only the Voltarian side there that were. Yeah. No. The people up there, when you join all of them together, they were even more than the Eves, the Vedome Eves. That is why in the plebiscite of 56, when they were called to ask to vote yes or no, those people north all voted overwhelmingly to join the Gold Coast, but the Vedome Enclave voted to join their brothers who are in the French Togoland. And that explains why whenever things are not going well, the issues of secessionism come from that particular areas, because if you look critically at the voting pattern that came for the joining of the Gold Coast, those enclaves voted overwhelmingly against joining Gold Coast. So they have that. So
that's where history brings about all those issues with regards to. And when the Transvolta Togoland issue came up as well, I don't know if that's also in any way had history dating back to some of these things. You know, recently there was this chief that rose up and said that they want to detach from Ghana. And it caused a whole lot of. He was arrested and all.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is because during the voting, they did not vote to join
the Gold Coast.
But it is a whole territory, so majority carries the vote. If you did not vote for majority within the territory, what it means is that you alone in your small corner cannot decide for the entirety. That is the issue of democracy. So even if you disagree.
Yes,
the majority have agreed. So that is what happened. I'm trying to show the joining of various sectors and so on. So as I was saying, by when these provincial elections were conducted, then later before J.B. Dankwa came in, that all the educated youths of the Gold Coast must come together and bring their ideas. When the British bring any budget, they should scrutinize it and offer counter ideas. So he founded an organization called Gold Coast Youth Conferences. So at any given time, conferences were conducted, and the women started emerging in that organization to speak. One of them was a first woman to have a degree, who was Charity Zomelo, who was a Voltarian from Keta. We used to head a girls' school in Kumasi, Mufratu School. So he was one of the first people to speak at that meeting. And the Kesilefo's daughter, who was also a poet, called Gladys May Kesley Hayford also joined, and there's another woman, Messi Kwale Kote Papafiu, who was also a head of Cape Coast Girls School. These three women played a critical role during those periods, giving speeches here and there. Unfortunately, Charity died early at the age of 40, and her place was claimed by Mrs. Amata Few, who also came in, one of the pioneers in the foundation of the Young Women Youth Association. How do you call it? Is it YMCU? The girls, they are old.
Yeah, they have
YWCA. YWCA, Young Women Association. So they founded it, and then they also contributed ideas. Then in 1947, J.B. Danko realized that there's no political party in the country, so he decided to see people who have money, and he went and meet Pa Grant and other leading people, R.S. Blay, and then they met at Sword Pond, a place called Canaan Lodge, on 4th August 1947, and they founded United Gold Coast Convention, which became the first political party of nationalistic character at the time, though without people from the Northern Territories, but it was of nationalistic character then, and they all came together and started the journey towards independence. Whilst they were there, the General Secretary, who was a lawyer, says his business is going down, J.C. de Graaf Johnson, so he decided to resign, and Akwaje suggested that Nkrumah should be brought to come and do the job because he had the organizational capability which he witnessed during the 1945 Manchester Congress of Pan-Africanism. So a letter was sent to Nkrumah. Mind you, people make a terrible mistake of thinking that the UGCC people only knew about Nkrumah through Akwaje. No. When UGCC was being founded on August 1947, 4th August, at Sopon, the General Secretary, J.C. de Graaf Johnson, read a letter that Nkrumah had sent. And he said that this is a letter from a member from diaspora, Francis Nria Nkrumah. That is Nkrumah's original name. Francis Nria Nkrumah sends his felicitation for the formation of the new political order in the country. So Nkrumah sent his letter as a member in diaspora. As we know today, political parties have their diaspora members.
Yes, yeah.
It is quite unfortunate that when people are talking about the UGCC, they make it look like Nkrumah was an outsider. When clearly, even on the day of the foundation, he sent a letter that was read to the gathering. Okay? So when Akwaje wrote the letter to me, it was not shocking that Nkrumah would accept and come in. And when Nkrumah came in, the party was full of old men. And they look at the motto itself, self-government within the shortest possible time, which was a gradualist approach. I get in that point. And Nkrumah came, he has no time. He has seen Calabar discrimination in America, and these people went to Britain where it was not pronounced. But Nkrumah has felt it in the US. So when he was coming, his agenda was to drive the Europeans away. And then they gave him the position of the General Secretary. He founded the Committee for Youth Organization, CYO. Bring all the young Turks and hardcore guys from Sekendi, Sekisheks, Ashanti Krobwedusei, and several others. In fact, by 1949, Sekishek was saying that Ghana should be declared independence. And as a result, he was arrested, one of the Nkrumah's boys. And Nkrumah himself, because of the kind of political activism he brought, UGCC had branches all over. Within that period, a lot of things started happening. One, the prices of cocoa went down. So the farmers that have formed various farmers associations also came together and decided to engage in what was called cocoa hold up, that they will not sell their cocoa again unless the producer price is adjusted to the one they like. And as a result, the hold up went on for a year. Cocoa was not being sold by our farmers. So that is how the farmers also contributed towards our independence agenda. Then at the same time, the European owners of some of the big companies like UAC, today Unilever, GB Olivant, and the Syrians who were controlling the markets were also increasing the prices. So a Ghana chief, Nico Benaboni of Oswaleta, decided that there is the need to boycott European goods. And last year I give a paper and I describe him as the man who brought the politics of consumerism in the Gold Coast. Something he did that today we cannot even hold telcos responsible for reduction in anything. Nico Benaboni alone decided to engage the Gold Coasters to boycott all the European goods, because the European goods, they have formed a cartel. These companies that sell all the European goods, they call them Association of West African Merchants, which is called AWAM. So it is from them that term AWAM came. So when they meet, they decided that this is how we will set the price, and then everybody accepts. So the Gokos are coming, AWAM. So you see that. So Nico Benaboni decided to kind of engage the Gold Coasters, and he warned the political parties that he does not want to see any politician in it. If you look at the archival record, he was doing cablegram and telegram all to every community, and he gave the time. The British say this thing will not even end for one day. He was able to sustain it for a week, and all even the price that he asked that the prices should be reduced to, the Europeans even give him more than he has asked for, because it was so effective. Around that time, to renew the 48, the veterans had also not been given their promises that the British gave them.
Those who went to fight the World War.
So they also decided to stage a walk to the seat of governor, which was then the Osu Christabon Castle. While on their way, the British police officer, fearing for his life, thought they were coming to attack the governor. Ordered, he's called Major Emery, ordered that they should be fired at. And 3 of the people we all know, Sergeant Ajete, Corporal Odatelamte, and then Corporal Tipo, also fell around that time. So it was a period where a lot of things were happening. To even add to it, the cocos also were affected by the swollen shoot disease, and they said it should be cut. So the farmers also got agitated. Around that time, I always said that Gold Coast was begging for a leader. Anybody who had positioned himself very well and taken advantage would have emerged, including Nico Benaboni himself, who started the whole chaos. But Nkrumah, being smart, quickly positioned himself and brought the UGCC boys, and then they went on a rampage. What it became the positive action and the looting. So there was a massive looting of European goods. All the UAC, Ghanaian young men will enter and take all the crops out. Every shop all over. So they have to declare a state of emergency in the state. And then that is what we call the 1948 disturbances in our history book. All these kind of things. So a committee was formed called Watson Commission to look into the affairs. When the Watson Commission looked into the affairs, some of the UGC members blamed Nkrumah that he is the one who has brought this kind of radicalism and behavior which is alien to the British trained people, because he was coming from America. Nkrumah got offended. Some even suggested that he should be sacked from the UGCC. So he left and went and formed his Convention People's Party. At the same place UGCC was founded, in South Pond. And then he became very radical, got the young people. Interestingly, he changed his motto. And he said, self-government now. And he didn't end there. He said, seek ye first the political kingdom, and all other things shall be added unto you. So that was his quotation.
That's we've never heard.
Seek ye first the political kingdom, and all other things shall be added. So he energized the youth, and a new form of radicalism emerged. So people who were in UGCC, most of them, and unlike UGCC, Nkrumah also believed in the women. So in Accra, you have Nadede, Ashikishan, you have Hanakujo, people coming from all walks of life. that makes CPP very vibrant. So as a result of that, another committee was founded called Kuse Constitutional Reform. And the Kuse Constitutional Reform was to show us a practicality as how we can get our independence. So it came out that in 51, we must have a parliament akin to that of British. And we will run election until we perfect the act, and then we become independence. So Kuse Constitutional Reform asked for elections to be conducted. But political parties would not be formed in the Northern Territories since they have not been immersed into the politics of the South. So in 1951, election came. And in that election, 3 parties contested. One was United Gold Coast Convention, UGCC, and then Convention People's Party, CPP. UGCC was led by Dr. J.B. Dankwa, CPP by Kwame Nkrumah. And then National Democratic Party. It was the party that was born in Accra. And that party was Old Gamma Party. And another Ghana party that was founded called Kuhei, which was a new party in Ghana language. And they became National Democratic Party. And they elected Dr. Nanka Bruce as their leader. And in 51, we entered into the election, and Nkrumah won. As a result, Nkrumah became our first prime minister and the leader of government business from 1952. Okay? Because of the way the UGCC were totally defeated, the party got disintegrated.
So all this time, the British were still very present.
They were present, but when we entered into their system, the governor became a ceremonial head.
Okay.
But the actual running of the state was done by Nkrumah. That is why he's the prime minister and the leader of government business. If you go to England today, the prime minister is also the leader of the government business. He does the actual day-to-day running and administration of the government. So that was the role Nkrumah was playing. That is why he could come out with the 2 5-year development plans and later 7-year development plan. It is not the British idea. People confuse people about the kind of governance that was taking place within the period. So Nkrumah ruled from 52 to 54. And then 54, there was a new elections. Because UGCC was divided, they divided into 3. Obeche Belamte took his own. And then he called it Ghana National Party. Dr. K.A. Buzia also founded Ghana Congress Party. And Dr. Kumi Ansekwe from Ekwapim also founded Ghana Action Party out of the UGCC.
Oh.
Okay. Then the Muslims in Ghana also formed a party called Muslim Association Party, MAP. And their leaders were Alhaji Amadou Baba. But because they were not highly educated enough to represent, they went for a fancy man called Kweku Darko Ankrah to head the party. But he was not a Muslim. So as a matter of agency, he has to tuba or proselytize to become a Muslim. And so he became Mustafa Rena. He took a name Mustafa Rena to enable him. So whenever CPP people go to rally with him, when they see him, Mustafa Rena, Muslim Banza, because he has only become a Muslim because he wanted to lead the map. Okay, then in Angola, there was also a party founded by a man called Modesto Apalu, which was Angola Youth Organization. He also founded his party representing the Angola people. And then the Northern people too founded, they have their party, Northern People's Party, which was there. So you realize that the parties were
now forming
from sectarians or either ethnic or religious. Yeah. So all these parties contested Nkrumah in 54 and they lost the election and Nkrumah won again. So when Nkrumah won, the 3 UGCC parties collapsed. Now there was no UGCC tradition. Then in Ashanti, the prices of cocoa went up in 55. When the prices of the cocoa went up, Nkrumah did not give the corresponding increment to the farmers. So the farmers in Ashantis came together. And then When they came together, they needed a leader. So they decided that they want to found a party. And when they formed the party, they called it National Liberation Movement, Matemeo, NLM. And then it was led by the Asante Yunis chief linguist, Bafo Seakoto. So he led. The party was then based in Ashanti alone. Then suddenly, the UGCC people have no home. So they went and joined the NLM. Olenu from Accra went to join. Obete Bilamte also went. Then Buzia went to join. And Pansadadi from Cape Coast. Then people from other spaces, Apalu and others from Volta also went to join the NLM. And they all became part of the system. And they helped it to grow. Then suddenly a party that started as ethno-nationalist party gained nationalistic character. And then we were going to independence. They were scared. Most of these people in UGCC and NLM, they like the beginning kind of governance where chiefs could also be elected to the legislative council. Because in the legislative council, chiefs and the elected representatives go. So it was the bicameral type of legislation, like the British House of Lords, as well as the House of Commons, or United States House of Representatives and the Senate. So that was the kind that we used to run here. So we are going to independence. People want that kind of arrangement to be used. So in that kind of arrangement, you need to have bicameral legislation as well as also having a federal state. And federal state is what Nigeria is doing, what US is doing. And for listeners who do not understand, federal state is when a state is composed of semi-autonomous state with one central government. Okay?
And unique governance.
Unique governance. So when you have it that way, then it means the central government, the states have their own heads, they will have their own budgets and run things. So it means if one state is very rich, he can use all the resources for itself without necessarily being sent to others, except only when the state, the central government uses its reserve powers to evenly allocate some of the resources, which is something that is not even. So Nkrumah also said no. Ghana is too small to practice federalism. So he likes the unitary state where all the resources will be collected and the central government would then allocate to each and everyone's needs. The NLM says no, and that's what they call themselves Matemeo, until the constitution agreement is settled upon before we go to independence. So in the 56th election, they brought an expert from England where we had a constitutional meeting and assemblies, and it was drawn that we should vote on for the either federalism or unitary. And in 56, we went to the election, and Nkrumah won. So when Nkrumah won, it means what? Unitary government has been accepted. And then in 56, we're getting to 57, the 6th March was brought in that we will have independence. And Nkrumah, having won the 56th election, was automatically the leader. But as people argue about whether founders or founders with R, S or after apostrophe S, what it is that, you see, after 56, Gold Coast was still not full. It was without one territory, which is Transvolta, Togoland. That was when Nkrumah asked for the plebiscite from the United Nations, which was in trusteeship of the territory. And an election was conducted, and they became part of the Gold Coast before we formed Ghana. So in the modern Ghana, there's nothing like number 9. Some Ghana was found before some people came to join. So even Transvolta, Togoland, they joined Gold Coast before a new nation called Ghana was born. That is what I want to make it as instructive. So people who have these stereotypes and sometimes will say some events are number 9 later before they came, there is no historical argument to support that.
But with that number 9, where is that coming from? Because you mentioned it.
So it was a 9th territory when they were dividing the regions. Are you getting that point?
Yeah. Okay.
But as I said, they were even there from the Awonos and the Vidumes have always been there even before Ashantis and the Northern Territories. Are you getting the point?
Yeah.
So 6th March came and we had our independence.
Is there any history to why it was in March or on the 6th? Is there?
Well, it was an agreed upon thing that having voted on that election, the next year, election should become. But the 6th was instructive because the bond of 1844 was also signed on the 6th March.
Okay.
Are you getting that point?
Okay.
So people intended it to be so historic. After some 200 years,
okay,
we are now getting our own independence. So that was what happened. But one thing you didn't see, one of the critical arguments before we enter into the independence was the name the country should choose.
Yeah, Ghana, which we're going to ask.
Which is Ghana. And Ghana means the king. We used to have Old Ghana Empire. As far back as 1898, when Anaman was writing about the history of the Gold Coast people and the Akans, he said all his research findings found that the Akans came from the Old Ghana Empire, particularly Timbuktu. Okay? So you see that Bruce, also Timbuktu, Ghana, Mali, that song. He's talking about where the Akans and other people came from. Okay? So Anaman was the first to establish that historical link. Then in 1910, Lord Lugard's wife, Lady Lugard, came to Gold Coast and also studied the people and affirmed what Anaman has written. In 1925, J.D. Fage, who is a historian at Fatima School, also confirmed. Then J.B. Dankwa in 1934, in his epistle to the young men of Akime Buakwa, also proposed that it is true the accounts came from that area, but they should call the territory Gold Coast in future when it gets independence. It should be called Akanaman. Then the Fanti elites rise up and started bashing him left and right. So by 37, he also changed his mind that it should rather be Ghana. But the first person to use Ghana to name anything was Kwame Nkrumah. When the 1948 positive action occurred, some of the students in Infantapim, St. Augustine's, went on rampage, and Adesada went on rampage, and then they were sacked. So Nkrumah decided to form a new school for them in 1949, and the school he formed was called Ghana National College, even though we do not have Ghana yet. Then you didn't also observe something. In 1954, when the UGCC collapsed, Ubeche Bilante's party was Ghana National Party.
Yes, they're all using Ghana.
Okay.
Right.
Buzia has Ghana Congress Party, and Kumi and Sekwe Ghana Action Party. Why is it that a nation that is Gold Coast, these people were
using Ghana
even before the name will come? So it means all our nationalists, irrespective of their differences, they had in their mind that when we get the independence, this country will be called Ghana.
So I want to ask about the Akans and then how they have become the leads of the Akan tribe. So the Ashantis, beg your pardon. So the Ashantis are now the lead, but it seems like the Fantis also started before. They had the Gold Coast before the Akans. You said that they were their next. Yes. So
it's about the numbers, right?
Okay.
It's all about the numbers. So the tribes, you can count them. We don't have tribes in Ghana. We have ethnic groups.
Okay.
You see, so when you say Israelites, you talk about the tribe of Judah, because in those days, if you look at the Bible, they would do consensus. Have you read Bible where they talk the number of family members in it? Numbers, read Numbers very well. Yeah. They mention, they count themselves and give. So if you are capable of counting them and know them as it is, they are tribes. People you can easily identify. Come and let's line you up.
Collectives.
The ethnic groups we have, you can't count them. Yeah. As we speak, there are a lot of Ewe in Canada and America. They call them Oceania. They are not part of the Ewe in Ghana here too. If you are going to count Ewe, it means you are going to move through 3 countries: Togo, Ghana, Benin, and Nigeria. Before you enter Lagos, or immediately after Same border, all the land, that water landed thing before you reach Lagos are all Evers. Okay, they call them the Badagry. All the Badagry people are Evers. I got in that point. So they are there. If you talk about Akans, the second highest ethnic group in Ivory Coast. The first highest ethnic group or the first ethnic group in Ivory Coast are the Akans. Akans are 65% in Ivory Coast. Okay, the Baoulé, the Anyi, the Abaji, and so on. So Akans are in 2 countries where they are the highest ethnic group. Okay. We get the point. So the Fantis are smaller. Even though they started the beginning because of their contact with Europeans, education and opportunities came there first. But the Ashantis have the numbers too. They also have the resources in terms of gold, in terms of the agricultural production. So at any given time when they entered, for instance, take at law legal practice, Fantis started becoming lawyers as far back as 1862. When the Dutch were selling their properties to the British didn't have a single lawyer. They need to go and bring. It was a Fanti lawyer, George Emil Emisang, whose grandson is Fritz Bafu of NDC. Okay, he was the one who was the lawyer with the knowledge of mergers and acquisition. So he was the one who drafted the entire transaction, and then the Mina properties were sold to the British. And he, because of the yeoman's job he did, he was allowed to man the fort for a year before a British was appointed. So it means Fantis have that opportunity. Ashantis will produce their first lawyer in 1927 in the person of Asafaje, Edward Ochi Asafaje. Achems will also produce their first lawyer in 1927. I get that point. Yeah. So they, all of them were over. You see, so it shows you it shows you the difference. But when you have the numbers and then you enter into something, your number will easily come and swallow the smaller one.
Yeah. Our time is way past, but let's just push it. Post-independence. Now we had, we're not there. We had Kwame Nkrumah had, with infrastructure development in the country, had just looked as though for us now, we look at it back and go like, it probably went through the roof to 100%, where we see a lot of things being dammed, the dam and all these things. What really led to the downfall of such a great person, if we say he was that honorable in those times?
So as I said, when Nkrumah came already, when the British were leaving, there was not a single factory. Not a single factory. As I've explained, colonialism was for profit of the Europeans. So one of the advantages they gain is that whenever there is unemployment, the surplus population, they bring it to Africa where they have the territories and employ them, so that there will be no agitation back home. I get in the point. While they are still cutting your resources. So all the infrastructure they did were, apart from the civil service they created for the smooth administration of the resources, they also gave us some railway lines. So one port city, which is a natural port, Takoradi. They didn't need to invest that much. It's not capital intensive. And then railway, look at our railways. The railway moved from the port straight to the cocoa growing area and then to the mines. That's all. There was no attempt to link cities
for transport purposes.
For transportation of the goods, not human beings. To just take the gold straight to the harbor, to take the cocoa straight to the harbor and go and sell. So they didn't make any attempt. So when Nkrumah came, this was his dilemma. How do you engage in interconnectivity of the transportation system? So he thought of linking some of the railway lines, something he did. And then he moved on that if we are export producing country, then we need another harbor. And that is why Tama Harbor also came into existence. And then you look at the education, that for northern territories, for example, because the colonial administration used them as labor recruitment zone. So the Southerners, they were royals. Even when they introduced the pan latrine as a mode of sanitation, the Southerners said they can't carry shit because it is not in their culture to do so. So they brought Liberians who came to carry. That is why a person who carries shit is called Kruni, because the crews came and they were carrying those pan things. Kruni. That's Liberian crew, K-R-U. And a person who carry it in in the south, we call them crony. So that is a crew person. So that's what happened. So Nkrumah in his agenda ensure that to ensure the historic injustice that has been done to the Northerners, introduce free education so that they will also meet the Southerners who have had education since the early contacts. So people normally don't understand why are the people in the North having free education and we are not having. The truth of the matter is that from 1900 all the way until Nkrumah brought it, the Northern Territory was used as a labor recruitment zone. So they were coming to work in the mines. They were, when railway work is being done, they will come and hold. In fact, the chief of Takwa, when they were doing the railway road, he said, no Takwa person, they are not slaves to do things for free or small amount of money. So he refused to bring anybody to work and he was arrested. Still, his people didn't do. So they have to go back to the north and bring them to be used as labor and for free of charge. So some of these things, Nkrumah saw the historical injustice and gave them the opportunity to have free education. In addition to that, were the fact that no factories were also there. And the British had done feasibility studies for the Akosombo Dam. Nkrumah activized it and even went for additional loans through Colonial, who was his finance minister. And they secured finances from the World Bank as well as Kaiser International. And they were able to have the Akosombo Dam as well as the Valco, the aluminium smelter, to produce some of the things we need in the country. Then Nkrumah entered into what is called import substitution economy, because he realized that there are certain things we need not to import, like corn beef. Why must we order corn beef from Europe when we have a lot of cattle in the north? So he came with the Polgu meat factory. Then there was tomatoes. So you have to come with his home and cannery as well as the tomato factories. Then we had the cocoa. He realized that the whole world will control the cocoa. If you control the cocoa, why must cocoa be sent to New York before a price is determined? To shock all of you here, do you know we can't sell cocoa to each other as we sit here? If I have cocoa and I sell it to you, I will be arrested. It's a crime. Every cocoa
is that the bulk or the singles?
All the cocoa, because the thing is that the bulk of the cocoa, if I'm giving to you that one, there's no match. But if it is weighed in sack, I cannot sell to you. So that every cocoa is bought by the produce buying companies who are licensed by the government. And they buy it from the farmers and send it straight to the cocoa board. And the cocoa board will send you to, New York, the commodity exchange, where it will weigh and prices will be given. Okay? So if you open your cocoa factory in Ghana and you want to use cocoa, you have to go to New York and buy it and bring it back to Ghana. Jesus. Because it is not sold here. And that is why chocolate prices produced in Ghana are high. Because you need to go and do what? Also compete for the allocation.
For your own product.
For your...
Wow, I didn't know.
Who did this to us?
Are you getting the point? Jesus. So that is the kind of thing. So Nkrumah says no, he won't allow that international market to tell us what to do. So he built the jute warehouse in Tama. I don't know if some of you have seen it before. When we are going to Tamahabo, very big one there. Yes, so that we can form a cartel and also control the cocoa price and not Europeans. Unfortunately, it couldn't be. He couldn't start it before he was overthrown. And Nkrumah, in addition, also came out with about 22 factories. By 1964, you ask a very good question. By 1964, Ghana was doing so well. The economy was high. Industrialization will reach 23%, which means we were on the move for a takeoff. When the coup came and we slumped to over 6%, we've been struggling. Champion moved us to 15. Since then, we've been sliding up till now. You get the point. So Ghana reached what is called premature deindustrialization. When you want to industrialize and you couldn't reach your apex and you slump down, and now you begin to trot until thy kingdom come. That is where we have been up till now. because
as a
was that
historian,
organic, or was that by the manipulation of agents like the CIA?
Yeah, because we look at the overthrow of Nkrumah, there were externalities, and then there were people who also think that their forefathers worked before Nkrumah came, so they were ready to support anybody who is ready to
go against
Nkrumah, and so that they will emerge, which is exactly what happened when Nkrumah was overthrown. It opened the gate for the UP tradition to come into. I'm talking about the Progress Party of Busia. All those people who have fought against Nkrumah and they have lost elections to him, then emerged as rulers. I don't know about the paid aspect, but what I see that it is some sort of desire to be rulers of the country apart from Nkrumah. But in a way, it wasn't a good thing for this country, because our industrialization, which if they have continued, would have helped. But I said 64 because by 64, all the sickness we see today also started affecting Nkrumah's government. First, the CPP had become so powerful that some of the factories and the companies, they started recruiting party activists into the positions instead of the earlier ones that Nkrumah started, where people come with their technical know-how and so on to. They started removing them and bringing their party activists. So by 64, out of the 22 factories, only 2 were profitable. Ooh. You get that point?
Which 2?
Only 2. Talking about Ghana Commercial Bank, for example, was taking over 70% of the market and was most profitable. The government owned about 70% shares. So it was wholly owned Ghanaian thing. And one other company I've forgotten. But they were doing very fine. Even those who were not performing well and unprofitable, it could be turned around. And the argument, according to Atta Louise, who became a Nobel Peace Prize winner for economics, he was Nkrumah's advisor, okay, with late J.H. Mensah and E.A. Umabu, Oyeman Rekwampium, were Nkrumah's advisors. They were talking about alternative means of reviving the factories as a result of the overt partisanship that has gone into the appointment and recruitment of workers. So this was something that, for me, I think that we had opportunity to learn from Nkrumah's mistake, isn't it? But we couldn't. Today we are even doing worse than
institutionalized it.
Yes, what we accuse Nkrumah. So many things people accuse Nkrumah of came to bite them. But politically, what really worried Nkrumah for me was some of the policies that he ruled out. One, he came with Avoidance of Discrimination Act, that parties cannot be formed of ethnic, religious ground, which was in tandem with Nkrumah's idea of African unity. Yes. So all those parties were, so it means Ewe Congress cannot be there. Anglo Youth Organization will not be there. Togoland Congress cannot be there. Muslim Association Party. And so all the parties came together and they formed the United Party, UP. That is also Northern People's Party. They came to join and they formed the UP and then CPP. Then Nkrumah went on to come back with what is called Preventive Detention Act. The Preventive Detention Act came as a result of series of bomb throwings against Nkrumah. In my own thesis, I was able to get about 26 bombs that were thrown to him from various newspapers. Okay, at Kulangugu, he nearly died. Accra Sports Stadium, Flower Pot, it was thrown all over. So as a reaction, he came out with the Preventive Detention Act that anybody suspected of performing an act, you will be arrested. They are not going to wait till you do it. So that law was really prospective. An act that has not occurred, you are arresting the people. So many politicians became victims to that. And that is how Obeche Belamte and J.B. Danko died. And it said, beyond them were also CPP members in the villages. When they are envious of somebody or when they have issues with you, you know how petty politics. They will go and rat on you that you are planning to bomb Nkrumah or do something, you will be arrested. So this made Nkrumah very unpopular. And then there was also a time that he also deported, Emergency Powers Act, where he deported some leaders of the Muslim Association Party, Alhaji Ahmedu Baba, Otman Laden, And then the Anglican Archbishop of Accra, Bishop Roosevelt, was also deported back to England. And you have the editor of Graphic, Bankole Timothy, also deported back to Sierra Leone, and so on. So these kind of things made Nkrumah unpopular. And to crown it all, the making of Ghana a one-party state following the amendment in 1964, which many people thought he has become an autocrat, not offering up opportunity for other parties to also have a bite at the political space. So these kind of things were really what made Nkrumah unpopular. But beyond that, we have seen all these things I've tabulated for you. When Nkrumah was overthrown, the regime that accused him of autocracy and all those things, the regime itself also introduced for PDA, Preventive Detention Act. They also introduced Protective Custody Decree, PCD. And anybody suspected of being Nkrumah, they will arrest you and put you in prison. Oh. I get that point. So what is the criticism here? They also used the Emergency Powers Act. Any foreigner they thought you were close to Nkrumah, you are deported back to your hometown.
Wow.
Nkrumah sacked some judges, the 5 of them. They sacked about 30 judges from the judiciary. So every single thing they accused Nkrumah of doing, they did it and even did worse. And we've seen it over the years.
I would have to bring this. I mean, we could go on and on and on. I'm sure there are a lot of questions that we want to ask, but our time is almost fast spent. I think we'll have a conversation on a second engagement on this. But I think it's been very insightful. Yeah. My team, I think with all due respect, we'll have to bring our conversation to an end on this. But it's been
independent school today.
Yeah. You've been you've been on there for about an hour plus now.
Oh, really?
Yes. But it's been very insightful. I mean, there are tons of messages I've received here. But thank you very, very much. There's a lot of learnings from this, and I'm very sure our target markets, the younger folks who also watch us a lot have learned a lot of things from this. Thank you so much. We'll bring this conversation again. If you want to watch this tonight, it'll be at 10 p.m. plus on our YouTube channel. You can also watch it as well. But we promise this will be the only time that we'll get our historian in here to have more conversations with us as well. Guys, without saying much as well, thank you so very much, and we're back at the same time Monday here on another conversation on Culture Daily, and we out. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Culture Daily was brought to you by Telecel.